Dr. Hae-Jin Park stared at the video recording for the 10th time that day. On her screen, a human repair crew fixed an exploding engine while singing old Earth songs. They should have died, but instead, they turned the disaster into a successful repair mission. It made no sense at all. She sat back in her office chair at the Galactic Research Institute, surrounded by walls of data screens showing similar incidents. Each screen told the same story. Humans surviving impossible situations, not just surviving, but somehow making things better than before. Dr. Park, Director Lee wants to see you, her computer announced. Hae-Jin saved her notes and walked through the clean white halls of the institute. Other researchers moved out of her way. They all knew about her strange new research project, and many thought she was wasting her time. Director Kita Lee's office was at the top floor of the building. He was looking out his large window at the three suns setting over the horizon when she entered. "You wanted to see me, Director?" Hae-Jin asked. He turned around slowly. "Yes, Dr. Park. I've read your research proposal. You want to study why humans keep surviving impossible situations. Not just surviving, Director. They thrive in them. Look at this data." Hae-Jin pulled up a hologram showing hundreds of incident reports. When things go wrong around humans, they don't just fix the problem. They often end up making things better than they were before. Director Lee frowned. "Many species get lucky sometimes. This isn't luck," Hae-Jin said. She showed him another video. This time, it was a human ship captain who saved his crew by flying through an asteroid field backwards with broken engines while telling jokes over the radio. No other species does this. When things go wrong for others, they follow Murphy's Law. Everything that can go wrong will go wrong. But with humans, it's like Murphy's Law itself is afraid to work properly around them. The director watched the video with growing interest. "And you think this is worth studying?" "I think it's essential. If we can understand how humans do this, it could change everything we know about probability and universal laws." Hae-Jin's eyes lit up with excitement. "I've already gathered 5 years of data. I just need permission to study them up close." Director Lee looked worried. "Getting close to humans is dangerous, Dr. Park. They're unpredictable. Strange things happen around them. That's exactly why we need to study them, don't you see? They'd break the rules of probability itself, and they don't even realize they're doing it." The director was quiet for a long time. Finally, he said, "Very well. You have 6 months, but be careful. Don't let them know you're studying them. And Dr. Park," he looked at her seriously, "remember that you're a scientist. Don't get too involved. Just observe and record." Hae-Jin nodded, trying to hide her excitement. As she left his office, she was already planning her research. She would need to find a way to get close to humans, to see how they acted in daily life. She needed to understand why the universe itself seemed to bend its rules around them. What she didn't know was that this study would change not just her understanding of humans, but of reality itself. And somewhere in the vast fabric of space-time, Murphy's Law was about to learn why it should stay far, far away from human beings. The Grand Hall of the Galactic Embassy sparkled with floating lights. Dr. Hae-Jin Park felt out of place among the diplomats and military officers. She adjusted her formal research uniform and checked her hidden recording device. This diplomatic party was her chance to observe humans up close. A crash came from across the room. Hae-Jin turned to see a human officer holding a broken glass. But instead of causing a scene, he had somehow managed to catch all the liquid in another glass he grabbed from a passing server. The nearby aliens looked shocked, but the human just laughed. "That's Commander Jae-ho Kim," a voice said beside her. Hae-Jin turned to see her research assistant, Tae-Won. "He's famous for getting out of impossible situations." Hae-Jin watched as Commander Kim walked over to them. He moved with a relaxed confidence that seemed to ignore the formal atmosphere of the party. "I couldn't help noticing you two watching me," he said with a friendly smile. "I'm Jae-ho Kim, Earth Space Force." Dr. Hae-Jin Park, Galactic Research Institute, she replied, trying to sound casual. That was an impressive catch with the drinks. Jaiho shrugged. Just got lucky. You should have seen last week when our ship's main reactor almost went critical. Now that was interesting. He-Jin's scientific curiosity took over. What happened? Oh, nothing too exciting. We lost power to the cooling systems. The backup generators failed. The emergency vents jammed. He talked about the disaster like it was a mild inconvenience. So I had the crew redirect power from the artificial gravity system, using the reactor's own heat to create a convection current. Turn the whole problem into a new way to boost our engine efficiency. He-Jin and Taiwan exchanged looks. What Commander Kim described should have ended in a catastrophic explosion. Instead, he had invented a new type of engine cooling system. You humans have an interesting way of handling problems, He-Jin said carefully. Really, we just do what anyone would do, Jaiho replied. Though I've noticed other species tend to panic more. No offense. A sudden alarm blared through the hall. Red emergency lights flashed. Warning. Environmental systems failing. Oxygen levels dropping, announced a computerized voice. The alien diplomats rushed toward the exits, but the doors had sealed automatically. Panic started to spread. Jaiho looked at the chaos and smiled. Well, this should be fun. Want to help me fix it? Before He-Jin could answer, he was already walking toward a maintenance panel. She followed him, recording everything. He hummed a tune while opening the panel and looking at the complex systems inside. Hand me that serving tray, would you? He asked. He-Jin passed him a silver tray from a nearby table. Within minutes, he had turned it into a makeshift circuit bypass. The oxygen levels started to rise. How did you know that would work? He-Jin asked, amazed. Didn't know. Just seemed like it might. Jaiho closed the panel. Sometimes you just have to try things and hope for the best. Usually works out somehow. He-Jin stared at her data recorder. The probability of his solution working had been less than 1%. Yet he had acted like success was certain. Commander Kim, she said, would you be interested in participating in a research study? Sounds interesting. What's it about? Oh, just observing how different species handle unexpected situations, she said, trying to sound casual. Inside, she was excited. She had found the perfect subject for her research. What she didn't tell him was that he had just demonstrated exactly what she was studying. Humanity's strange ability to bend probability itself. As the party returned to normal, He-Jin sent a quick message to Director Lee. First contact established. You won't believe what I just saw. Dr. He-Jin Park's office walls were covered with data charts. 3 months of studying Commander Jaiho Kim and his crew had produced incredible results. Her research assistant, Taiwan Choi, was adding new numbers to their main display. Look at this, Dr. Park, Taiwan said, pointing to a graph. Human ships have a 300% higher survival rate in situations where all other species' ships are lost. And the numbers get even more interesting when we look closer. He-Jin walked to the display. The pattern was clear now. When things went wrong around humans, they didn't just survive. They found ways to make the situation better than before. Show me the engine failure data again, she said. Taiwan brought up another chart. Last week, when Commander Kim's ship lost engine power near that black hole. According to every known law of physics, they should have been pulled in. Instead, they used the black hole's gravity to slingshot themselves to safety and discovered a new form of space travel in the process. He-Jin nodded. She had watched it happen. The humans had treated near-certain death as an opportunity to experiment. Even more strange, their crazy ideas had worked. What about the smaller incidents? She asked. Even more fascinating. Taiwan showed a series of daily logs. Coffee machines breaking down just in time to prevent people from drinking poisoned coffee. Computer errors that accidentally revealed hidden space pirates. Even their accidents helped them somehow. Their computer suddenly beeped with an incoming message. Director Lee's face appeared on the screen. He looked worried. "Dr. Park, I've been reading your reports. These numbers can't be right." "They are right, Director," He-Jin said. "We've checked them hundreds of times. Humans don't just ignore Murphy's Law, they reverse it. When everything should go wrong, things go right instead. And the worse things should be, the better they turn out." "That's impossible," the director said. "Humans specialize in impossible," Ta-One added. "Look at this data from their history. The more times people told them something couldn't be done, the more likely they were to succeed at it." He-Jin brought up her latest analysis. "It's like probability itself is afraid of them, Director. When the universe says no, humans treat it as a suggestion, and somehow reality seems to give up and let them win." Director Lee was quiet for a long time. "The Galactic Science Council won't like this," he finally said. "They believe everything follows clear, logical rules. This breaks all of them." "Maybe that's exactly why we need to study it more," He-Jin said. "The humans have shown us that the universe doesn't work the way we thought. They're not breaking the rules. They're showing us that our understanding of the rules was wrong." Just then, their screens flickered. The power in the building started to fail. Emergency alarms began to sound. "Speaking of things going wrong," Ta-One said, looking at his data pad, "Commander Kim's ship just docked at our station for repairs, right before our power system started failing." He-Jin smiled. "Perfect timing. Let's go see how humans handle this crisis. Director, would you like to observe?" Director Lee sighed. "Document everything, Dr. Park. If humans really do make Murphy's Law run away in fear, I want to know how they do it." As He-Jin and Ta-One hurried to the docking bay, she couldn't help feeling excited. Whatever was about to happen would either prove her theory right or wrong. And somehow, she knew that having humans nearby meant things would work out better than anyone expected. The space station's emergency lights cast red shadows through the corridors. Dr. He-Jin Park and Tai-Wan Choi ran toward the main control room, where Commander Jae-ho Kim and his crew had already gathered. "The station's reactor is overloading," the station's chief engineer reported. His hands shook as he looked at the displays. "We have maybe 20 minutes before it goes critical. The safety systems aren't responding." He-Jin watched as Commander Kim studied the situation. Instead of panic, she saw the same calm interest he always showed when facing disaster. He was actually smiling. 3,000 people on this station," Jae-ho said, looking at the numbers. "That's 3,000 reasons to fix this. Anyone have some crazy ideas? Those tend to work best." One of his human crew members raised her hand. "Sir, what if we use the broken cooling system from our ship? The one we were here to fix." "Our cooling system that doesn't work?" Jae-ho asked. "I like it already. Tell me more." He-Jin recorded everything as the humans quickly made plans that defied all logical sense. They wanted to connect their broken system to the station's failing one. According to every law of engineering, this would make things worse. "This is madness," the station's engineer said. "Connecting two broken systems will only speed up the meltdown." "Probably," Jae-ho agreed cheerfully. "But has anyone ever tried it before?" "No, because it's impossible." "Perfect. Then it'll definitely work." Jae-ho turned to his crew. "Let's move." He-Jin followed them as they ran to connect the systems. The station's temperature was rising. Warning alarms blared everywhere. She watched as the humans worked, noting how they seemed to ignore the increasing danger. "Dr. Park," Ta-One whispered, checking his instruments. "The probability of this working is less than 0.001%. "Watch what happens to that number," she replied. The humans finished their connections. The station shuddered. For a moment, everything went dark. Then, suddenly, power returned. The temperature began to drop. "How?" the station's engineer asked, staring at his readings. "The two broken systems are fixing each other," This breaks every law of physics. Jai-ho shrugged. Laws of physics are more like guidelines anyway. Sometimes you have to think outside the box. The box? He-jin asked. Commander, you didn't just think outside the box. You took two boxes that shouldn't work, put them together, and created something entirely new. Is that unusual? Jai-ho looked genuinely confused. It just seemed like the obvious solution. He-jin looked at her data recorder. The probability calculations were going crazy. According to the numbers, what just happened had been completely impossible. Yet here they were. Later, in her office, He-jin reviewed the incident with Director Lee over a video call. They did what? The director asked, his eyes wide. They saved everyone by doing something that should have killed everyone, He-jin explained. And the most interesting part, they expected it to work. It's like they don't just ignore probability. They remake it to match what they believe is possible. This goes beyond just surviving impossible situations, Director Lee said thoughtfully. They're actually changing what's possible. Exactly. He-jin smiled. And I think I'm starting to understand why Murphy's Law avoids humans. They don't just break the rules of probability. They make probability itself question what rules are. The Great Hall of the Galactic Council was silent. Thousands of alien representatives watched as Dr. He-jin Park stood at the central podium. Behind her, large screens showed her research data. Director Lee sat in the front row, nodding encouragingly. Distinguished members of the council, He-jin began, my research shows something extraordinary about humans. They don't just ignore Murphy's Law. Murphy's Law actively avoids them. Murmurs filled the hall. A tall council member stood up. Explain this theory, Dr. Park. Let me show you. He-jin brought up video recordings from the space station incident. When these humans faced certain disaster, they didn't just survive. They created a solution that should have been impossible. And this isn't a single case. Dr. Min Ji-yoon, her colleague in theoretical physics, stepped forward with more data. We've analyzed thousands of incidents. The worse the situation becomes for humans, the more likely they are to succeed. It defies all probability laws. That's not possible, another council member said. Probability is fixed. It cannot change based on species. That's what we thought too, He-jin replied. She showed more videos. Humans surviving spaceship crashes by inventing new emergency procedures, solving unsolvable computer problems by making mistakes that somehow worked better than proper solutions, and turning disasters into discoveries. Look at the pattern, she continued. When other species face disaster, Murphy's Law takes effect. Everything that can go wrong does go wrong. But with humans? She paused. Murphy's Law seems to run away. It's as if the fundamental laws of the universe are afraid of what humans might do if challenged. Dr. Minji displayed complex mathematical equations. We've proven that probability itself warps around human activity. The more impossible we tell them something is, the more likely they are to succeed at it. The council chamber erupted in debate. Director Lee stood up to speak. Members of the council, I was skeptical too. But after months of observation, we've confirmed it. Humans don't experience probability like other species do. They reshape it. He-jin showed her final piece of evidence, the statistics from Commander Kim's ship. This human vessel has survived 14 situations that our models rated as absolutely impossible. Each time, they didn't just survive. They discovered new scientific principles, invented new technologies, or found better ways of doing things. Are you suggesting, a council member asked slowly, that humans make the impossible possible simply by refusing to believe in impossibility? No, He-jin replied. I'm stating it as scientific fact. When humans face impossible odds, those odds simply give up. Murphy's Law doesn't apply to them because Murphy's Law is afraid of them. The council chamber was silent again. Then one of the eldest members spoke. If this is true, it changes our understanding of the universe itself. Yes, He-jin agreed. And that's exactly why humans are so remarkable. They don't just break the rules. They make the rules question themselves. As the council debated her findings, Ho-Jin noticed Commander Kim watching from the back of the hall. He gave her a thumbs up and a grin. She realized he still didn't understand why anyone thought this was strange. To him, it was just another day of making the impossible happen. The testing chamber at the Galactic Research Institute was designed to create impossible situations. Lead researcher Sun Wukang checked his instruments one final time before beginning the first official experiment. Test Group 1 is ready, he announced to the observation room, where Dr. Hae-Jin Park and the Galactic Council representatives watched. We have 3 human teams and 3 control teams from other species. They will all face the same challenges. The first test looked simple. Escape from a room with no exits. The control teams tried everything they could think of, but remained trapped. The human teams, however, did something unexpected. They started having fun. Are they? Playing games? One council member asked, watching the screens. They were. The humans had decided that since they couldn't escape, they might as well enjoy themselves. They played word games, told jokes, and threw a small party with their emergency rations. Then something strange happened. Their random movements during a game of charades revealed a hidden passage that even the chamber's designers hadn't known about. That's impossible, Sun Wu said, checking his plans. That passage wasn't there when we built the chamber. The second test involved solving a computer problem that had no solution. The control teams worked carefully and logically, but made no progress. The humans approached it differently. They're making mistakes on purpose, He-Jin noted, watching them work. They're trying to see what happens when things go wrong. Sure enough, the humans' random mistakes somehow combined to create a solution that worked perfectly. It wasn't just a solution to the test. It was a completely new way of programming computers that no one had ever thought of before. How do they do this? Sun Wu asked, shaking his head in amazement. The final test was the hardest. Each team faced a complete system failure in a simulated spaceship. Everything that could go wrong did go wrong. The control teams all failed within minutes. The human teams treated it like a party game. Hey, if we cross these wires with those broken pipes, we might explode, one human said cheerfully. Cool. Let's try it. What's the worst that could happen? Another replied. We'll probably discover a new form of space travel, a third joked. To everyone's shock, that's exactly what they did. Their random combination of broken systems somehow created a new type of emergency propulsion system. In the observation room, the council members were silent with amazement. Director Lee turned to He-Jin. Your theory is proven, Dr. Park. Humans don't just ignore Murphy's Law. They turn it upside down. Look at their stress readings, Sun Wu added, pointing to his instruments. The human stress levels actually went down when things got worse. It's like they enjoy impossible situations. He-Jin nodded. That's the key. Other species see impossible situations as a problem. Humans see them as an opportunity. And somehow, the universe seems to agree with them. The council members watched as the human teams celebrated their discoveries together, completely unaware that they had just revolutionized several fields of science by accident. We must be very careful with this information, one council member said quietly. If humans ever realize how special they are, they would probably just laugh and make jokes about it. He-Jin replied. That's what makes them so remarkable. They don't know they're impossible, so nothing is impossible for them. Dr. Hae-Jin Park stared at her computer screen, unable to believe what she was seeing. After months of tests, her team had finally discovered why humans could bend probability. The answer was both simple and shocking. Dr. Park, Ta-Won called from his desk. You need to see these brain scan results from the human test subjects. He-Jin walked over to his station. The screen showed detailed images of human brains during impossible situations. What she saw made her gasp. Their consciousness, she whispered. It's actually changing the probability fields around them. Director Lee entered the lab just as they made this discovery. "Explain," he said, looking at the complex data patterns. "When humans face impossible situations, their minds don't accept the impossibility." He-Jin explained. "But it's more than just positive thinking. Their consciousness actually reaches out and changes how probability works around them." She showed him the recordings from their latest tests. When humans were told something was impossible, their brains produced unique energy patterns. These patterns somehow affected the very fabric of reality. "Watch what happens here," Taiwan said, playing a recording. "When we tell them they can't solve a problem, their brains light up in a special way. It's like their minds refuse to accept failure as an option." Commander Jae-ho Kim had volunteered for these tests. They watched a recording of his latest session. He was trying to fix a completely broken engine with nothing but a paperclip and a rubber band. "According to all our instruments, what he's attempting is absolutely impossible," He-Jin said. "But look at his brain patterns." The scans showed Jae-ho's consciousness extending beyond normal boundaries. The probability field around him shifted and changed. Somehow, the paperclip and rubber band became exactly what he needed to fix the engine. "Humans don't just ignore Murphy's Law," He-Jin explained to Director Lee. "Their minds actually force probability to work differently around them. The more impossible we tell them something is, the more their consciousness pushes back against reality itself." Director Lee sat down heavily in a chair. "This changes everything we know about consciousness and reality." "It gets more interesting," Taiwan added. "The effect gets stronger when humans work in groups. It's like their combined refusal to accept impossibility creates a bubble where normal rules of probability don't apply." He-Jin brought up more test results. "We've confirmed it with hundreds of trials now. Human consciousness doesn't just observe reality, it can change it. When humans decide something should be possible, the universe seems to agree with them rather than argue." "Has any other species shown this ability?" Director Lee asked. "No," He-Jin replied. "Other species accept the rules of reality. Humans look at those rules and decide they can be changed. And somehow, they're right." Director Lee was quiet for a long time. "Does this mean humans could potentially change any rule of reality they don't agree with?" "That's what we need to find out," He-Jin said. "But one thing is clear. Murphy's Law avoids humans because it has no choice. Their minds simply won't accept its rules." The final report lay on Director Lee's desk. After a year of research, Dr. He-Jin Park had completed her study of human probability manipulation. The Galactic Council had gathered for one last presentation. "Our conclusion is clear," He-Jin announced to the packed chamber. "Murphy's Law actively avoids humans out of self-preservation. When faced with human determination, the laws of probability choose to bend rather than break." She displayed the final data from their year-long study. The numbers were impossible to ignore. Human success rates in impossible situations had reached 400% above normal probability. "But why does this happen?" asked the council leader. "Because humans refuse to accept limitation," He-Jin explained. "Their consciousness creates a field that changes reality itself. The more we tell them something is impossible, the more determined they become to prove us wrong." Commander Jae-ho Kim stood up from his seat. "Dr. Park asked me to share a story from Earth's history," he said. "Humans once believed it was impossible to fly. Then we built planes. We thought reaching space was impossible. Then we built rockets. Every time someone says, 'That's impossible,' we take it as a challenge." Director Lee joined them at the podium. "We've discovered that the universe has learned a simple truth. It's easier to change the rules than to argue with humans." The council chamber filled with concerned whispers. One member stood up. "This makes humans incredibly dangerous. They could change the fundamental laws of reality." "No," He-Jin said firmly. "It makes humans incredibly valuable. They don't break reality. They expand what's possible. Every time they overcome an impossible situation, They create new opportunities for everyone. She showed recordings from the past year, human solutions being adapted for other species, their accidental discoveries advancing science, their strange ideas solving ancient problems. Humans don't know they're special, Heijin continued. They think everyone can do what they do. And because they believe this, they share everything they discover. Their gift isn't just defying probability. It's showing us that our own limitations are often just in our minds. The council was quiet for a long time. Finally, the council leader spoke. What do you recommend we do with this knowledge? Learn from them. Heijin replied simply. Humans have shown us that reality is more flexible than we thought. Murphy's Law runs from them because they've proven something important. The universe isn't fixed. It can change and grow. Commander Kim raised his hand. Can I say something? When Heijin nodded, he continued. All this research is interesting, but you're missing the simple part. We humans don't do anything special. We just try our best and help each other out. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. But we keep trying anyway. Heijin smiled. His words had just proven her point perfectly. Humans didn't need to understand their power to use it. They simply refused to give up. And somehow, the universe found it easier to change its rules than to stop them. The council voted unanimously to classify humans as a probability-altering species. But as Heijin filed her final report, she knew the humans would just laugh about it and go on doing the impossible, never realizing they were changing reality itself. After all, that's what made them human.